We play games to chill out, right? Until some titles just completely ignore that, hitting you with a narrative that grabs you by the throat. It's like signing a contract for suffering, but we end up loving every second of it, don't we? I've selected 20 games that don't pull any punches, the ones that force you to make choices you already know are going to hurt. Get ready to relive moments where your console turns into a tear-jerking machine, and we'll show you why every painful second was worth it. If you enjoy being emotionally destroyed by art, stay right here. This list is your ultimate gamer dark side. You know that moment in a narrative game when you make a tough call, and for a split second, you think you've gamed the system? Telltale's The Walking Dead laughs in the face of that optimism. This isn't about saving the world. It's about watching the world relentlessly strip away everything good from Lee and Clementine's journey, making every decision feel like a triage unit for your own moral compass. The gameplay hinges on impossibly fast, high-stakes decisions, but here's where it gets interesting. The real emotional weight comes from the quiet moments of companionship, making the inevitable losses feel even more personal and brutal. It's a masterclass in making your choices feel monumental, only to prove that no matter what you pick, the zombie apocalypse or just life itself is determined to hurt you just the same. The genius of this game lies in how deeply invested you become in the relationship between Lee and Clementine. It's the anchor in an ocean of despair. Every time you defend her or teach her a hard lesson, you're not just playing a game, you're co-signing on the emotional impact of the eventual heartbreak. The voice acting and facial animations, though simple, carry an incredible amount of grief, forcing you to sit with the pain of every necessary sacrifice. Ultimately, The Walking Dead isn't about surviving the walkers, it's about the emotional gauntlet of trying to preserve your humanity when everything around you is rotting away. It earns its spot on this list not just for the final iconic moments, but for making you feel completely responsible for every tear shed along the way. Get ready to feel proud of your choices and utterly destroyed by their consequences. If The Walking Dead is about existential dread, Life is Strange is about the specific sharp pain of teenage drama, amplified by cosmic horror and time travel. Max's power to rewind time seems like the ultimate cheat code, right? A chance to fix every awkward moment or stop every disaster. But here's the rhetorical question. What if fixing one thing just creates a new, equally devastating problem you can't see coming? The game makes you a god of causality, forcing you to choose between people you care about and the entire fabric of reality. And let me tell you, it's a Sophie's choice with flannel shirts and indie rock. The storytelling structure masterfully blends the mundane school hallways, diner breakfasts, with the catastrophic, making the sudden surges of emotional intensity feel completely earned. You spend so much time building an authentic, flawed relationship with Chloe, discovering secrets in Arcadia Bay, and then the game delivers the gut punch you can't have it all. No matter how many times you hit rewind, the universe demands a painful sacrifice, and you are the one signing the check. Life is Strange is the game that asks you to be selfish, be selfless, and then punishes you equally for both. The decision at the very end isn't just a binary choice. It's the culmination of hours of emotional labor, making the final scene a pure, unfiltered release of waterworks. It's a beautiful, frustrating, and devastating journey into the nature of consequence, and one that absolutely guarantees the tears. We all went into Red Dead Redemption 2 thinking we were getting a fun, sprawling cowboy epic, a sandbox of mischief and magnificent sunsets, and we did for about 60 hours. Then, slowly, methodically, the game starts turning the screws. Arthur Morgan's story is an epic tragedy built on the beautiful lie of freedom, and knowing his fate from the start doesn't make it any less impactful. The pacing is deliberate, allowing you to develop a deep, complicated bond with every flawed member of the Van der Linde gang, making their inevitable fracturing an intimate, personal trauma. The sheer scope of the game's world, with all its detail, serves only to highlight the claustrophobia of Arthur's destiny. You can fish, hunt legendary animals, or rob a train, but you can't escape the ticking clock of his declining health and the moral decay of his chosen family. And here's where it gets interesting. The game ties your morality system directly into Arthur's final moments, ensuring that no matter how good you were or how many side quests you saved for, the core narrative of loss and regret remains completely immovable. It's the quiet moments, writing in his journal, the conversations around the campfire, or the final, breathtaking ride back to camp that make this game a total tearjerker. RDR2 is less a game and more a sprawling, interactive eulogy for the Wild West and the man trying to find redemption in its twilight. You will cry for the cowboy, you will cry for the era, and you will cry because you spent so much time with him only to have to watch him go. Unlike the other epics on this list, What Remains of Edith Finch delivers its emotional gut punch in a beautifully concise and fragmented package. This isn't about making choices, it's about bearing witness. The premise is simple: explore an impossibly strange house and relive the final moments of the Finch family members who all met untimely, often surreal ends. It sounds dark, but the execution is pure, inventive magic, turning each person's demise into a mini-game or a beautifully poetic short story. The gameplay is focused entirely on narrative immersion, with creative vignettes that perfectly capture the individual personalities and the arbitrary, sometimes absurd nature of loss. One moment you're a comic book hero, the next you're a factory worker living a double life. This rapid-fire empathy forces you to connect deeply with characters right before they vanish, making the overall experience feel like a collection of beautiful, tragic ghosts. The core sadness of the game is the understanding that these deaths weren't deserved or fair. They were just life happening in the most spectacular and heartbreaking ways. By the time you reach the final, quiet revelation about Edith herself, the cumulative weight of the house's sorrow will absolutely crush you. It's a short game, but the emotional density rivals anything else on this list, proving that sometimes the best way to make a player cry is simply to tell an unforgettable story about inevitable goodbyes. To the Moon is proof that you don't need cutting-edge graphics or explosive action to create a devastating emotional journey. You just need an unbelievably powerful script. The entire game is essentially a point-and-click adventure with light puzzle solving, yet it's the narrative engine that hits like a freight train. You play as two doctors who delve into the memories of a dying man, Johnny, to fulfill his final wish, going to the moon. And here's the hook. They can only do this by creating a fabricated memory, and they quickly realize the true reason behind the wish is far more complex and heartbreaking than they anticipated. The story unfolds in reverse chronological order, peeling back layers of Johnny's life, his relationship with his wife, and a forgotten tragedy that has defined his entire existence. The dialogue is snappy and often funny, which only serves to make the inevitable, crushing revelations that much more impactful. You spend the whole game trying to fix a past you can't touch, creating a devastating sense of dramatic irony as you watch characters make choices you know will ultimately lead to sorrow. This is a game about the things we forget, the memories we cling to, and the power of love in the face of insurmountable loss. The narrative twist is a powerful masterstroke, but it's the quiet, earnest commitment of the characters to each other that will force the tears out. To the Moon is a beautiful, heart-wrenching meditation on memory and regret, and a must-play for anyone who wants a pure, unadulterated emotional experience that lingers long after you finish. If you thought the first A Plague Tale was emotionally demanding, Requiem comes swinging with a narrative designed to inflict maximum trauma. This is a game built around the relentless stress of trying to protect a loved one against impossible odds, and it delivers a conclusion that is famously, universally traumatic. Amisha and Hugo's journey is visually stunning, showcasing vast, beautiful landscapes that only make the desperation of their plight feel more jarring. But the beauty is only a deceptive facade for the terror and the emotional price they are forced to pay. The gameplay, which mixes tense stealth with desperate, often messy combat, perfectly mirrors the emotional chaos. You constantly feel like you're one misstep away from disaster, and your resources are always stretched thin, a feeling that is mirrored in Amisha's psychological deterioration. And here's the mini-hook. You know your efforts are doomed to fail in some profound way, yet you keep pushing because you are psychologically invested in saving Hugo, creating a potent, agonizing narrative tension. A Plague Tale. Requiem does not offer a comfortable ending. It offers a gut-wrenching finality that hammers home the theme of inevitability. It's a story where the characters must sacrifice everything, often for a goal that remains just out of reach, leaving the player with a heavy, lasting sense of loss. If you're looking for a game with a beautiful world and a final act that completely destroys your soul, this is your ticket. Most games use enemies and environmental obstacles to challenge the player. Hellblade uses Senua's own mind. This is an intensely focused psychological journey into the heart of psychosis, grief, and the struggle for mental wellness, and it achieves an unparalleled level of emotional authenticity. The game's use of binaural audio means the voices in Senua's head, which can be encouraging, condemning, or confusing, are whispering directly into yours, making her anguish feel physically immediate. The narrative is deeply symbolic, following Senua's descent into the Norse underworld to confront Hela, and more importantly, to confront her own demons. The combat is satisfyingly brutal, but the true brilliance lies in the puzzles and moments of quiet exploration where you're simply trying to parse reality from illusion. You know that moment when you question whether what you just saw was real or a hallucination. That's Hellblade's core loop. This title is fundamentally a story about finding light in the deepest darkness, but the journey to get there is a profound, empathetic exercise in pain. It earns its spot because it forces you to feel Senua's psychological distress, making her eventual hard-won self-acceptance a truly cathartic, tear-inducing experience. It's short, it's intense, and it will leave you emotionally drained, but in the best possible way. On the surface, NieR Automata looks like a stylish action game with fluid combat featuring androids, robots, and philosophical musings. Underneath, it's a multi-layered existential nightmare that uses its gameplay structure to deliberately inflict emotional suffering. Finishing the game once is just the prologue. The multiple playthroughs, endings A through E, don't just offer different perspectives. They fundamentally shift your understanding of the characters, the world, and the meaning of their endless fight. The game constantly raises the stakes, asking deep questions about what it means to be alive, to love, and to have purpose, only to provide answers that are steeped in sorrow and cyclical tragedy. The combat is phenomenal, giving you that immediate satisfaction, but every satisfying combo is undercut by the creeping dread of the narrative. And here's where the structure gets really cruel. The final, true ending asks you to make a choice that is designed to be a profound, real-world sacrifice of your own progress. NieR Automata is a beautifully realized piece of metafiction that turns emotional suffering into an essential part of the gameplay loop. By the time you reach the final, credit sequence-breaking conclusion, you realize the game hasn't just ended, it has left a gaping philosophical wound that will take days to close. It's a profound masterpiece that uses every storytelling trick in the book to devastate your feelings. Gone Home is the shortest and most intimate entry on this list, proving that massive explosions and epic stakes aren't necessary for soul-crushing emotional resonance. You return home after a year abroad only to find the house empty, and your task is simply to wander through the quiet, stormy manor, piecing together the events of the last year through notes, journal entries, and scattered possessions. The brilliance is in the atmosphere. Initially, there's a heavy sense of dread, making you fear a terrible, dramatic event has occurred. But as you meticulously investigate every drawer, every tape, and every scribbled note, the horror movie tension melts away, replaced by something much deeper, an incredibly personal, nuanced, and poignant story of a younger sister's self-discovery and a family's quiet struggles. The gameplay is pure environmental storytelling, turning you into a detective of memories and emotions. And here's the hook: the cumulative power of finding small personal artifacts. A concert ticket, a handwritten poem, a worn-out map, builds an incredibly rich picture of characters you never actually meet. The emotional payoff, when you finally discover the full story of your sister Sam, is a beautiful, devastating release of tension and understanding. Gone Home is an absolute must for anyone who appreciates how small, simple human truths can hit harder than any world-ending disaster. Let's talk about Mass Effect 3, the final chapter in one of gaming's most beloved trilogies, which promised to deliver a fitting end to years of choices, companions, and galactic heroism. What did it deliver instead? A powerful, often beautiful, yet fundamentally frustrating experience that guarantees tears, regardless of which color you pick. The vast majority of the game is spectacular. The final conversations with your crew, the desperate battles, the sheer emotional weight of calling in favors from companions across the galaxy, all of it is pure, unadulterated emotional payoff. The emotional core of ME3 is the farewell. Saying goodbye to your squad mates, watching characters you've invested hundreds of hours in making their final heartbreaking stands, and the personal exhaustion of Commander Shepard. It's a masterclass in building emotional fatigue and high-stakes drama. But here's the rub. After all that investment, after years of crafting your Shepard, the final decision space feels almost secondary to the emotional destruction that precedes it. Even with the extended cut, the three main options at the end are all fundamentally melancholic, forcing you to accept a profound sacrifice that the game insists must be made. You cry not just for the choice, but for the sheer weight of what was lost to get there. Mass Effect 3 is a tearjerker, because it forces you to say goodbye to the galaxy, your ship, and your friends, cementing its status as one of the most emotionally grueling and therefore necessary RPGs ever made. You've played choice-driven games before, but have you ever played one where the sheer volume of characters you're trying to save feels like an unbearable weight of responsibility? Detroit: Become Human drops you into a volatile near future where androids are fighting for sentience, and you control 3 distinct protagonists, each facing their own moral and physical gauntlet. The game's branching narrative is legendary, but the true emotional genius is how easily and suddenly your best intentions can lead to horrifying failure. The gameplay is a constant series of high-pressure quick-time events, investigation sequences, and dialogue choices, but the real difficulty is managing the interwoven fates of Connor, Marcus, and Kara. You try to keep everyone alive, you try to ensure the android revolution is peaceful, and yet the consequences of a single rushed decision can cascade into tragedy, resulting in the sudden, shocking death of a character you deeply care about. It's a game that thrives on making you feel the systemic injustice and the brutal cost of freedom, forcing you to constantly ask, how much are you willing to lose to protect an ideal? Detroit earns its tears, not because of one tragic ending, but because its design ensures that in the struggle for survival, you will inevitably save some and heartbreakingly fail others. It's a powerful, overwhelming, and deeply sad experience in trying to maintain hope during a revolution. Most military shooters make you feel like an unstoppable hero. Spec Ops: The Line is designed to dismantle that fantasy, leaving you a shattered mess instead. Set in the ruins of a sandstorm-ravaged Dubai, this game starts as a routine search and rescue mission but rapidly spirals into a psychological descent. The shooter mechanics are solid, but they are only the delivery mechanism for a narrative that directly challenges the player's assumptions about war and heroism. The emotional destruction is built on a series of choices where there is no good outcome, only increasingly dark levels of moral compromise. Captain Walker's mission is to save lives, but every choice he makes, driven by necessity or madness, leads to more death and devastation. And here's where it gets interesting. The game constantly breaks the fourth wall, questioning you and your desire to keep playing a violent narrative. By the final act, the game has stripped away any pretense of glory or redemption. Spec Ops: The Line is a masterpiece of deconstruction, using guilt and horror to forge an ending that is purely devastating. You will cry because the realization hits you. The choices you made didn't matter, and the only path available was self-destruction. This is one of the most important and saddest examinations of the psychological toll of war. If ever there was a game where triumph feels like total defeat, it's Shadow of the Colossus. This isn't a game about saving the world, it's about a single-minded quest by a young man named Wander to resurrect a girl named Mono by slaying 16 enormous, majestic colossi. The gameplay loop is simple: find the giant, figure out how to climb it, and deliver the fatal blow. But the simplicity is deceptive. The emotional weight of the game comes from the solemnity of the world and the sheer innocence of the creatures you are forced to destroy. Each colossus is a magnificent, gentle giant until provoked, and the act of stabbing them is framed not as heroism, but as a tragic necessity. You know you're doing something wrong, but you are compelled by Wander's love for Mono. You know that moment when you see the light fade from a colossus's eyes and hear its dying roar? It's soul-crushing every single time. Shadow of the Colossus is a pure, silent tragedy built on sacrifice and consequence. Every victory brings you closer to your goal but further from your own humanity, with the final revelation confirming that the price paid was infinitely higher than Wander or you could have ever realized. It's a breathtaking, melancholic adventure that proves that sometimes a journey of pure love is the most devastating of all. While Ghost of Tsushima is packed with satisfying samurai combat and an open world overflowing with beauty, at its heart, it's a deeply emotional story about cultural identity and the personal cost of survival. Jin Sakai is torn between the honorable path of the samurai, taught to him by his uncle, and the necessary, ruthless tactics of the ghost required to save his home from the Mongol invasion. The game forces you to constantly walk this line. The emotional stakes are built through Jin's relationship with the people of Tsushima, and most importantly, his adoptive father. The gameplay is a brilliant mix of honorable duels and stealthy, dishonorable assassinations, and every time you choose the latter, you feel the weight of Jin's sacrifice and shame. And here's the hook. The game allows you to be the perfect warrior, but it asks you to give up your very self to do it. The climax of the story is an inevitable, agonizing confrontation that is personal, political, and utterly heartbreaking. The final duel is not about saving the island. It's about the final severance of a father-son bond framed against a breathtaking sunset. Ghost of Tsushima earns its tears by making you choose between the man you were and the hero you must become, a tragic necessity that destroys Jin's emotional world in the process. Jumping back into the Telltale style, The Wolf Among Us is a detective noir set in a world where classic fairy tale characters live in hiding in modern-day New York. The plot is a fantastic, gripping murder mystery, but the emotional core is rooted in Big Bad Wolf's, the big bad wolf, perpetual struggle for redemption and the heavy weight of his dark past. You spend the whole game trying to be the good sheriff Fabletown needs, but everyone, including the player, expects you to revert to the beast. The gameplay, centered on rapid-fire dialogue choices and investigation, constantly pressures you to use violence, forcing you to wrestle with Bigby's inner monster. Your choices in the investigation don't guarantee justice. They often just lead to new, complicated layers of corruption and sadness, resulting in an often bitter and frustrating sense of emotional ambiguity. And here's the interesting part. The ending is famously ambiguous and bittersweet, leaving key questions unanswered and the possibility of a clean resolution completely out of reach. The Wolf Among Us ensures your tears aren't shed for a character's death, but for the profound emotional frustration of working tirelessly for justice only to realize that happy endings are impossible in Fabletown. It's a dark, captivating, and emotionally draining journey into the gray areas of morality. Sea of Solitude is an exceptionally moving journey that uses magical realism to explore very real, very painful issues: loneliness, depression, and mental health. You play as Kay, who has been transformed into a small, red, fur-covered monster, navigating a flooded city where her family and memories manifest as colossal, often hostile creatures. The game's premise is simple, but its emotional depth is immense. The gameplay involves light platforming and puzzle solving, but the core mechanic is emotional introspection. As you confront the massive symbolic manifestations of her parents' anger or her brother's bullying, you are forced to process Kay's raw, traumatic past. The water levels rise and fall, mirroring the fluctuating emotional states, creating a beautiful and suffocating atmosphere. And here's where the emotional payoff hits. The game transforms these large, terrifying monsters back into their vulnerable human forms as Kay processes the trauma, leading to an incredibly tender, cathartic release. Sea of Solitude is a short, intense experience that stands out for its honest, metaphorical depiction of mental illness, ensuring that your tears come from a place of profound empathy and understanding for Kay's journey. Don't let the charming, hand-drawn aesthetic or the tactical RPG mechanics fool you. Valkyria Chronicles is an incredibly sad game about the human cost of war. Set in a fictional Europe during a second global conflict, the game follows a small, ragtag militia squad fighting for their home. The turn-based tactical gameplay is deeply engaging, but the characters you command, each with their own names, personalities, and backstories, are the emotional anchor. The narrative is a brilliant blend of grand military strategy and intensely personal wartime drama. You know that moment when you move a character into position, knowing they might not make it back? In Valkyria Chronicles, if a squad mate falls in battle and isn't rescued in time, they are gone forever. This permadeath mechanic instantly elevates the emotional stakes of every single mission, making every tactical mistake feel like a personal tragedy. It's the unexpected deaths and the subplots focusing on prejudice, duty, and sacrifice that secure this game's tear-jerking status. Valkyria Chronicles is widely underrated for its emotional depth, offering a devastating commentary on the inevitability of loss and conflict, forcing you to mourn not just fictional characters, but the innocents they fought to protect. From the creators of Bastion, Transistor is a gorgeous sci-fi action RPG with a deeply poignant story delivered through a unique voice acting mechanic. You play as Red, a singer who has lost her voice and acquired a powerful, talking sword, the Transistor, after her lover is killed defending her. The core narrative is a poetic, bittersweet romance and a desperate search for answers in a rapidly deteriorating world. The gameplay is a stylish mix of real-time action and a brilliant tactical planning mode where you can freeze time to queue up moves, but the emotional glue of the game is the Transistor itself, which contains the consciousness of Red's lost love. Every story beat, every moment of progress, and every piece of lore is delivered through the weapon's voice, creating a constant, intimate connection with the person she is fighting to avenge. And here's where the structure gets you. The narrative builds to a breathtaking ultimate act of self-sacrifice that is both thematically perfect and absolutely soul-destroying. Transistor is sci-fi poetry, where the music, the art, and the deeply felt chemistry between the two main characters combine to create a heartbreaking, bittersweet finale that absolutely earns its tears. 13 Sentinels. Aegis Rim is arguably the most complicated game on this list, structurally, yet its complex, interwoven sci-fi narrative delivers some of the most emotionally devastating moments in modern gaming. The game follows 13 high school students in 1980s Japan who pilot giant mechs, or Sentinels, to fight an impending kaiju invasion. The story is told through multiple timelines and character perspectives, forcing you to piece together a reality that is far darker than it seems. The gameplay is split between a visual novel-style remembrance mode, where the emotional narrative unfolds, and a fast-paced RTS destruction mode, where you fight the kaiju. The emotional complexity arises from the reveal that their world is a complex simulation, meaning their relationships, their home, and their very existence are built on a fragile, devastating lie. You become intensely invested in the bonds between these characters, their friendships, romances, and sacrifices, only to have the game reveal the profound, agonizing sacrifices they've already made across multiple cycles of destruction. 13 Sentinels breaks you by making you fall in love with a beautiful, nostalgic world, only to reveal its tragic, devastating foundation. It's a mind-bending ride that is as satisfying intellectually as it is destructive emotionally. Rime is a beautiful, quiet puzzle platformer that uses environmental design and music to tell a powerful, wordless story about grief. You play as a young boy who wakes up on a mysterious, sun-drenched island, accompanied only by a helpful fox and the echoes of his own voice. The gameplay is meditative, focusing on exploration, light puzzles, and interacting with the natural world. The initial atmosphere is one of innocent adventure and exploration, but a creeping sense of melancholy pervades the journey. As you progress through the island's distinct zones, each representing a stage of the grieving process, the visual and audio cues start subtly hinting at a profound loss. You are slowly putting together a memory that you don't even know you possess. The final sequence is a sudden, powerful shift in perspective that recontextualizes every single moment of the preceding journey. It reveals the heartbreaking truth of the boy's identity and his purpose on the island, turning the entire game into a stunning metaphorical farewell. Rime earns its tears not with dialogue or combat, but with a masterful visual twist that is emotionally obliterating and profoundly therapeutic. There you have it, 20 single-player experiences that prove the best value for money in gaming isn't just about content, it's about catharsis. These titles deliver emotional arcs so raw, so complex, and so human that they linger long after you've put the controller down, often requiring a solid hour of reflection and maybe a hug. Which of these heartbreaking choices broke your soul the most, and which devastating masterpiece did we miss for the next volume? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dive lists on the absolute best of gaming. There's always another great story waiting to turn you into a puddle of tears.